And this guy had this crazy idea that this has to do with our nutrition, which is insane. What does this have to do with food? Food is going
Right.
to do anything, right? Especially in medicine, you never talk about food.
Right.
Uh, so we're like, whatever, we have nothing to lose. So I don't know. I was like, I'll be a supportive wife. There's not, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm great, but I'll do this crazy diet with you. Well, her skin completely healed. And I never felt better in my life. I'm like, what? I wasn't supposed to feel this unwell all the time. I didn't even
Yeah.
know I was unwell. Your stomach's not supposed to hurt after you eat all the time. Um, so I was like, this is crazy. This is magic.
Dr. Eve, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to talk to you today. We share so many of the same passions, and one of those being I love your theory or your belief that conventional medicine is just leaving a lot on the table because we're just treating symptoms and we're not actually getting to the root cause. So I like to jump in with a couple of fastballs. So let's start there. Like, have you always known that, or is this kind of like something you've kind of grown into as your practice as a doctor has kind of evolved?
I love that question. I didn't always know that. And so now one of the things I do is educate other providers also because there's a lot of arrogance, right? Not purposeful, not malicious, but like myself, when I finished school as an NP, you think you know all the things. And if you don't know it, you have a place to look it up, right? I'm not saying that, everyone thinks they know everything, but they have a place. There's like guidelines and you look it up. And if it's not in the guidelines, then it's not a thing. And truly, 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 you believe for a really long time that this is what it is. Again, no malice. Everyone really thinks that they're helping people, and they are, right? If you're sick, it's the right thing. But my wife had a health journey. We can get into that in a little bit. And that's when I realized the limitations. She's in medicine. I'm in medicine. We met in the damn ER. All our friends are in medicine. And the answers weren't there. And I find now when I went back to get certified in IFM and then I got my PhD in integrative medicine that there are so many people like myself who were doctors, NPs, PAs, and then the system failed them. And so there are a lot of us, but you almost have to like hit the wall to
Yeah.
really be willing to say, okay, maybe I need another toolbox.
Yeah. Well, I think there's so much information, like in the world that I live in, like in the world of nutrition, even just that by itself, right? It's like people ask me all the time, they're like, Jay, it's so confusing. Like, I don't know if I should do A, B, C, D, or E. And I said, listen, I've been doing this for 30 years. I'm still confused. Like, I can still go down the same confusion rabbit hole that you go down.
Yes.
And I think being a doctor is a lot like that. You guys get labeled with this authority, which is rightfully so, but nobody can know everything, right? It's like impossible.
Right. And I think what needs to happen is so I still practice primary care. My other practice, the EG healthcare. It's here, it's local. Once a week I'm there. And when let's just say we have someone with a kidney issue, we know to send to a kidney specialist. Heart issue, we know to send to a cardiologist. I think there needs to be an acceptance that if you hit the patient where everything looks normal, but the patient keeps telling you, I'm not okay, that there should be one more thing on your list of referrals, which is your integrative, your alternative. Instead of saying this doesn't exist, this won't help, like run the tests, send to all the specialists, let them all say it's negative, but then, don't conclude that it's in their head. How about now is a good time to add this to your list of referrals? Because it is confusing and
Yeah.
you do need a guide and you can't know everything, that's true. But I think where the issue is that, once conventional medicine takes you through all its specialists, then it's like, well, yeah, you're on your own.
Oh, it happens all the time. I have clients that come to me and they'll say, Jay, I went to the doctor, I got my blood work done. I did, we went through A, B, C, and D, and I'm still not better. And I think my doctor thinks I'm crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what to do next. And I think a lot of people stop right there with, I don't know what to do next. Is it just in my head? Do I just have to live with this? Like those are the questions you
Yeah.
start asking yourself as the client or as the patient. And that can't be the final resting place, right? We've got to get to that next stage.
Right. So it can't be the resting stage, but just as you said, it also can't be the starting, right? So you don't want
Right,
to start here. You don't want to say, oh, I've been tired for 6 months. It must be gluten, right? You don't want to go
right,
there first.
right.
So I always tell my patients, what's the first thing you do? Go to PCP, go to your specialist, do all the things. Um, when you hit the wall, by the way, you're right, your doctor thinks you're crazy. So you have to just be like, okay, not get angry, not go back to another PCP and ask
Right.
for more. They cannot deliver more. This is it. You've hit the max. It's like you cannot ask a plumber to fix your electric. Like this is it. Don't get mad at them. Just say thank you so much. It's great news. I'm not sick. I don't need medication. I don't need
Right.
chemo. I don't need surgery. It's great news. And then you have to turn to another provider. And you may not know which provider to use, and that's okay. There's a lot of, different people in this sphere, but choose one guy that resonates. Stay with that guy for a while, try the things, take what works, what didn't work, and then choose another guide if you need to, because all of us come from different, perspectives. But it's important, I think, to choose one guide, whether it's one-on-one, whether it's through a course, and stick it out because it's the bouncing around. Like,
Yeah.
I won't eat meat, I will eat meat. I won't
Right.
eat gluten, I will, like, stay with one thing for a bit before you switch.
Right. I mean, I've seen clients go from being a vegan to a carnivore to
Easy,
to paleo, and I'm like, it's like nutritional ping pong.
easy.
Yeah, yeah, and then their entire system is a mess, and I'm like, well, I don't care if you were the healthiest person on the planet, your system would be a mess, right? It's like your system is just your system. It's not designed for that kind of radical shifts in change. How did you, kind of back to that initial question, like, was it a slow onset where you were kind of like, okay, like I feel like I'm just talking about symptoms and symptoms and symptoms, and how did you finally get down to like, we're just putting band-aids on things? How do we stop doing that and actually start fixing the actual problem?
Yeah. So first, my wife had two autoimmune issues. In her case, it's PMLE and psoriasis. And I always like to mention it because every once in a while there'll be a listener say, "Oh my God, somebody else has
Yeah.
PMLE." So PMLE
What
is
i-
just,
what is that?
yeah, it's polymorphous light eruption, fancy word for allergic to the sun.
Okay.
So I like to tell people when I met my wife, she was a vampire because we could not go out in the sun.
What
So
would happen to her? Like, what would be the first presentation?
she would get uh, severe rashes, but it was delayed. So it took a while to get diagnosed because, like, you'll be in the sun and then 4 days later you have a rash. It's hard to make that connection.
Yeah.
So she'd have a rash, painful rash, flu-like symptoms, like body pain, have
Wow.
to like just get out, and she didn't know what it was. And at the time, she was a Division I softball coach, so she was like out there all the
In the
time.
sun all the time.
Yeah. So that was the first autoimmune. And then generally speaking, we always get a second and a third because we never solved the first one. So then she developed psoriasis, really severe, like cracked hands, bleeding feet, the whole thing. And all they offered us was a lot of medication.
Yeah.
So this was kind of pre-internet the way it is now, right? Because I'm a little bit older. And so it wasn't as easy to find information. And someone told me about this thing, functional medicine. I was like, I have nothing to lose. We got nothing to lose, right? And this guy had this crazy idea that this has to do with our nutrition, which is insane. What does this have to do with food? Food is going
Right.
to do anything, right? Especially in medicine, you never talk about food.
Right.
Uh, so we're like, whatever, we have nothing to lose. So I was like, I'll be a supportive wife. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm great, but I'll do this crazy diet with you. Well, her skin completely healed. And I never felt better in my life. I'm like, what? I wasn't supposed to feel this unwell all the time. I didn't
Yeah.
even know I was unwell. Your stomach's not supposed to hurt after you eat all the time. Um, so I was like, this is crazy. This is magic. Um, so then I did like a course and then a course and really dabbled in it, try to bring it into my practice a little bit. And then I was like, I can't do this half-assed. And
Yeah.
I just kept going. And then once I started going into this world, I started realizing that conventional medicine starts at the diagnosis, right? Like you have the diabetes, we have the meds for you. You have, God forbid, the cancer, we have the meds for you. But if you're in a state of unwellness, if you're in a state of symptoms, there's no room for you in conventional medicine. And in the case of my wife, if you're in a place of autoimmunity or some other chronic illnesses, sometimes there are no other options explored besides medication.
Right.
And so if you're looking for anything outside of that, it's just not going to be found there.
Why do you think, and this is more of probably a philosophical question, why do you think we've gotten so, and let me just full disclosure, I used to work in the pharmaceutical industry in a previous life. So I finally one day woke up and was like, what are you doing? Like I'm out here peddling drugs that I would never take, that I would tell my mother not to take. Like, this is the most, non-congruent thing you could ever be doing. And I left that, and now I'm into this world that I'm in now of, trying to help people with, natural resources. So know that about me first. But why do you think we've gotten to a place? And then this could be my perception just based on my experiences. It's almost like pills first, and then we'll try to figure out everything else. It's almost like an aggressive, I can't think of the right terminology to use, but we aggressively prescribe, like, probably for your wife, like,
Yeah,
hey, I'm going
the
to put you on all
algorithm.
these creams and pills and whatever, and then we'll talk about how you're feeling. Like,
Well, it's because, well, there's two parts of it. Part of it is the algorithm, and part of it is the finances. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist. Sometimes I feel like as soon as you say that, you sound like a conspiracy
right,
theorist. But I actually teach this at the university, like healthcare policy and finance. So I'm really coming from that space. So let's start kind of with the algorithm, right? So the algorithm tries to understand what the disease is, right? Like it says, oh, it looks at it really like mathematically, as it were, like, oh, the blood pressure, that means this chemical in your kidney is doing this, and this chemical in your kidney is doing that. So if we could take a medication that's going to combat this particular kidney, it really just looking at the disease process. And then it tries to find the puzzle pieces to move the parts of the disease process. It doesn't pan out. So part of it is like really looking at the disease almost on a biochemical level and trying to find the things that will move the levers. It doesn't pan out. It also doesn't use, it was never taught to use nutrition for its biochemical resources, right? So, if, for example, with high blood pressure, you want to open up vessels, vasodilate, and you give a medication for it. But you could also take resveratrol, which vasodilates, right? So you can use, which is found in grapes. So there was never a conversation of like, okay, I got it to the biochemical, but what could we do in our plate that could do that? So that's part one. And part two is financial, in the sense that the entire system of reimbursement is completely set up on diagnosis, right? There is no payment for great job, you're good.
right,
There's so annual wellness, sure, there's a code for it, but you get paid more if I also have high blood pressure,
right,
a diabetes. So the more codes that are in the the chart, the more complicated the patient is, the more money you get for it.
right.
Right? That's actually like how Medicare works. Like the more complicated it is, and then you have to show that you bring the numbers down. So the whole system is based on diagnosis codes. There's no way out.
Right.
There's no way out in this system. It starts at diagnosis, and it's. I don't think it was created with malice in mind. I just think, like, how else do you
Yeah.
create a system?
Yeah, how else were you gonna track all of the things and keep it all in uniformity? And for those of you guys that don't understand what Doc's talking about, like when you go to your physician, and all the paperwork that's behind the desk, like everything that you do or that they talk to you about or you get diagnosed with has like a sequencing of numbers, and those numbers get turned into the insurance company or the payers or whatnot, and that's how the whole reimbursement system works. So that's what she's referring to when she says the word like codes and things of that
Yeah,
nature. And if there's no codes, there's no
yeah. Let me
money.
get. Thanks
Right.
for thanks for cueing me. That I need to explain that more. So
Yeah.
let me give a more concrete example. Like if you come to me and you talk to me about your sore throat, that's one code, like a pretty simple code. But if you come to me and you're talking about your sore throat and your blood pressure and your diabetes, that's three codes, right? Just to simplify it. So
Right.
now the doctor gets paid more. So the whole system is spent. And if I could show that in 3 months I've improved some of your diseases, we get paid for that too. So it's just designed, it's
Yeah.
designed to keep you safe.
And I mean, most medical offices these days have a specialized person that just focuses on these codes and the assurance that the codes are being put in right and that they're being reimbursed right. It's a whole,
It's a
it's a
whole thing.
whole, it's a
And
business in a
again,
business.
it's right. There's no malice. I mean, the doctor
No,
deserves to get paid for their time, and
right.
certainly talking to you about three things deserves more than talking about one thing.
Yeah,
But imagine a world where you get paid more to spend like 45 minutes talking to you. But like, well, why is it hard for you to, get your nutrition right? What's in your way of getting your nutrition right? Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Come back to me. We'll talk about that more. That no, that doesn't happen. It can't happen
Yeah.
in the system.
Right. Well, and also it's the complexity of the system, how it's set up. It's like if you go into most medical offices, it's just like it's one patient after the next, after the next, after the next. So there's no time to get into, hey Jay, tell me how you're feeling. Like, maybe you don't have time to talk about your feelings or your emotions or like you said, what did you have for dinner last night? Things of that nature to create the correlation. And so as to what you're doing now, those are probably more conversations that you've started having as opposed to when you were doing
Sure.
conventional style.
Sure. So in the new method, which is my other company, it's coaching. I spend time on my patients. A
Yeah.
consultation takes an hour. They have a health coach. There's just so much more happening because we recognize that it's a whole different level of support. And then you may understand what to do, but then you go home and you look at your kitchen, you're like, and then you
Right.
have to feed your kid something else. Like, how do you navigate all that? Or you're going on vacation. Like, who's going to help you make all these new decisions in these new environments? So that's really how you move the needle on health.
When you look at things like, and this is the world that I live in, right? Is like disease states like obesity, those types of things, diabetes, all of that. When you look at the numbers as they are today, I don't even know how old you are. I'll be 50 this year. So I've been doing this for a long time and I've seen the shifts and the changes in, you know, I'll say the size of Americans for lack of a better term. And it's on a trajectory that in my brain says this is catastrophic. And there's going to come to a point where we're not going to be able to sustain the level of disease states that we're going to be, they're going to be coming our way. When you look at those numbers, like how do you see us making a shift and getting those things to start going in the right direction as opposed to the wrong direction?
I don't.
I was hoping you weren't going to say that. I was like, because I don't either. I was hoping that
I
you were going to
don't.
be the bearer of good news.
And I also want to add to I want to shift it away. Yes, obesity is a problem, but I want to shift it away just from weight and just say you could be not obese, but fully inflamed.
100%.
Right, right. And I know that's what you meant as well. It's just important I just want to make sure no one gets triggered, but I don't see it because the people like you and I are crazy.
Right. Yeah. I say all the time, I'm a
We're
certified psychopath. Like,
Yeah,
don't,
we're crazy. My wife and I going to a restaurant and splitting a meal and bringing some home
yeah.
is insane. The
Right.
portions are crazy. So like we're crazy, right? So don't I don't see it improving. I'm sorry.
No, no. Listen, I'm glad you're at least honest enough to say that. And that, I should have known being, from New York, that's the answer that I was going to get. You
I don't
probably, you
sugarcoat it.
probably even PG'd it a little bit for me, because we're on a podcast. But okay,
Maybe.
so let me ask you a different question. The same question, but in a different fashion. When you are addressing a situation like that, whether it's and I love how you said the inflamed state as well, because I mean, like, there can be somebody who looks
Right,
theoretically
right.
healthy, and that person could be an absolute disaster on the inside because of systemic inflammation. And I think
Correct.
that's really overlooked in the world that we live in today. But when you start addressing any of those situations, right? Like, how do you, because it really is, it's a shift in lifestyle, it's a shift in the way people think. Like, how do you address that from the beginning? Like, how do you start that process?
Well, the easier part for me is that when people reach out to me, they're already kind of halfway there, right?
Right.
Like they've already done some research, they've already are sick and tired of feeling sick and tired.
Right.
And so they're halfway there, right? And that's important because people who are not there, I see plenty of people in primary care who are like, hey, I really don't want to make changes. In which case, I'm more than happy to prescribe things because I want to keep you safe, right?
Yeah.
So so this is not for everyone. The people who are really resistant are really not even coming this way. So the person who's already kind of halfway there, they've made the call, they made the consult, they're psychologically ready. And then it's really important to meet them where they are
Yes.
because this is forever. This is a lifetime. This is not a 30, 60, 90-day magic protocol. There's
Right.
no like 5 supplements that you take and it's going to
Right.
fix it, right? So some people, great, they're ready to go all in. God bless, that's amazing. But most people, it's hard. And so you have to have like conversations, right? Which require time. Like where are we ready to do? And what's your highest priority? you know, what's your highest priority? For some people, if they say to me, I really need this autoimmunity like reversed at all costs, we're going to have to go pretty hard. You know, so it really depends on what the priority is and where they want to go. And then also being there for them. Am I allowed to curse?
Yeah, I hope
Okay.
you will.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also being there for them when they fuck up, right? because because
Yeah, because
this
they're
is
going to.
they're going to, and you
Yeah.
have to be there and be like, great, amazing. I was waiting
Yeah.
for you to fuck up because this is not realistic to do this all the time.
Right.
And I need you to fuck up so we could, what did we learn from the fuck up? What was hard about it? How do we get, so like you need to be there for that too, because if you just, yeah, 30 days, everyone's great for 30 days. And then what,
Right.
right?
Right.
Um, so the answer to your question is meeting them where they are, letting them know that there is no right way. It has to be super customized.
Yeah.
Some people actually need to be vegan. Some people actually need to eat
Yeah.
meat. Some people, like everyone's really different. Um, and then being there when they fuck up and letting them know they actually didn't fuck up. They were just human.
100%. I mean, people ask me all the time, like, Jay, what's the perfect this? And I'm like, if anybody gives you that answer, they're
Run,
a raging lunatic. Like, just
run,
either
run.
hang up the phone or walk out of the office immediately, because that answer doesn't exist, right? Because that's coming from the place of believing like there's some perfect model. And I say that all the time. I say, Jay, how should I eat? And I'm like, we have to answer a whole bunch of questions
Whole bunch of questions.
before that's
Yeah,
even on the table. Like, I'm not even,
exactly right.
that's probably like next week's conversation. So I think if somebody's ready for that, and I think a lot of people want we're such a quick fix society. Like, we want everything now, especially with, social media, and we look at all this fake stuff, and it's like,
Before and after.
why can't I live this life? Like, this person's living the dream. And I'm like, no, they're
No,
not.
no, they're
No,
not.
they're not. You don't even know what's going on. What do you think? Because I think about this all the time. It's like, when you get somebody that gets to you, right? They've made a few decisions to even to get to the place to get in contact with you. Has there usually been a tipping point of something? Is it usually like a disease diagnosis? Is it a family member that got sick? Like, what do you see that really gets people to trigger into that place?
I love that question. Um, I would say I have two groups of clients. The one client who's just they fell off the cliff.
Yeah.
Like they weren't well, and you know, they were kind of trucking along, pushing through it, and then something happened. And they will say, ever since
Right.
whatever, I just haven't been the same and I haven't been able to bounce back. Um, and the ever since is important. And then I do also have clients who are not unwell, but they understand that there are certain things they need to do for longevity.
Right.
And there's a metaphor that I use when it comes to they're on the spectrum of, like, I use like financial metaphors. So there are some people who are on credit card debt. There are some people who are living paycheck to paycheck, and there are some people who are saving for retirement. So the person who's in credit card debt, you cannot say to them, hey, how's your 401k doing, right?
Right.
You have to really get them out of credit card debts. That's my patient who's like in pain. They can't, they're exhausted. Like, I cannot even talk to them about the longevity game. Like, I just want to get them out of pain.
Right.
Then I have the person paycheck to paycheck. That's the person's like, we got them out of credit card debt, but like one false meal, one false like weekend, and they have a bad flare up. So we have to get them to a place where they're not flare all the time. And then you have the stable person, and that's a person we could really just have the longevity conversation of like, what do we do next? How do we keep optimizing? So I would say I get both ends of that spectrum. And we take them where they want to go.
Yeah, I love that longevity piece. I get people that ask me all the time, because they'll listen to me, or listen to one of my coaching calls or whatever, and they'll hear me talk about like the plan I have for myself for longevity, right? Which, again, my disclaimer to that is always like, I'm a lunatic, right? So you're probably not going to eat like I eat. You're probably not going to sleep like I sleep. You're probably not going to take the supplementation I take. A, B, and on down the line. So we have to get really clear on like your level of lunacy that you're willing to partake in. But I get clients that'll say, Jay, I just want to optimize my longevity. I want to be the healthiest version of myself. And then the questions always go to, well, what supplements should I take? This and that. And then I always just back them all the way to the beginning and say, like, listen, first of all, if you're not sleeping well, if you're not hydrating yourself, if you're not eating, I'll use the word well, right? Decent. If you're not moving your body, then the supplementation is irrelevant. Like, we could spend $1 million a year on supplementation, and it wouldn't put a dent in the situation that we're trying to create. Yeah. How do you get that?
One,
Do you get that?
I get it all the time. What supplements should I take?
Yeah.
I'm like, I have no idea.
Right. There's no answer to that, right? It's like,
There's no
what are
answer
we
to
trying
that.
to solve?
And I don't know if you like, I have a lot. I'm on TikTok and I have like whatever 100,000 followers, and I get this question all the time,
Yeah.
and I'm like, that's crazy. I have no idea.
Right.
Sometimes people even complain that my website is hard to buy from, and it's not really designed for like, it's designed for people I work with, like to go find the things. It's not really
Right.
designed like get these, things in Miracle Cure.
Mine
So
is the exact same way. Like I have my own line of supplements that if you work with me, like this is where you should go. But it's not, I mean, the general public's not going to stumble in there and be like,
yeah,
oh, this is Amazon. Here we go. I'm going to go on a
yeah,
shopping spree. So
it's not
yeah,
comfortable really. You
yeah,
have to kind of know where you're going.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah,
So
so
what do you say? Like, how do you answer that question?
I
Because that is,
answer it exactly like you. The supplements are not that. If you're still eating McDonald's, you think this like sea moss is going to help you, right? It's not
right,
that. Um, and the other thing I always say is I don't care how much gluten-free ice you're eating. If you're not sleeping, you're not okay, right? So like
100%.
you have to be sleeping. By the way, if anyone hasn't heard me say this, lack of sleep is causative for dementia and Alzheimer's. Causative meaning lack of sleep will give you dementia / Alzheimer's.
100%.
So you have to sleep, you have to move, and I like that you said move because it's not a bad exercise for some people. It's just
No,
walking down to the mailbox. That's and they're
100%.
out of breath, right? You must eat some form of well.
Yep.
I have like kind of like I would say what well is if I had to choose is you need to start with some plants. There's got to be some color on your plate, and then if you're not ethically averse to it, then some sort of animal protein. But like my wife does not like animal protein, so she'll have
Yeah.
a different type of protein. And then oils.
Yeah.
And that's basically where you're at.
I always use I just say, I want you to get as close to the natural source as you possibly
Yeah.
can. Right. It's
Yeah.
like,
Like you're on a farm.
if it's in a box or a bag, it has to be chemicalized or processed, or there's got to be some kind of nonsense in there. And so the
Correct.
analogy I use for that is I always say, like, listen, okay, yes, there might be X amount of protein or X amount of good fats or X amount of whatever, but if you're coupling that with a toxin, then you're basically asking your body to make a decision. Like, hey, Jay's body, like, here's two things. I'd like you to take this protein and do good stuff with it. And then whatever you want to do with this crap, figure it out. Well, your body doesn't work like that. It's really focused on getting that crap out of your body. So you're not setting yourself up for success when you're ingesting all those chemicals and just processed foods. And I think in the world we live in today, like, I mean, it's process. So get as close to the source as you can.
Absolutely. And then, back to your supplements, even if you have all those things right, each person has different supplement goals.
Totally.
Right? Some people need supplements for energy, like
Yeah.
adaptocrines, and some people I'm really supplementing their protein. They're having a hard time getting protein in, so amino acids.
Yeah.
Some people it's really about focus. So I really love saffron for focus. Some people their bellies hurt all the time. I need digestive enzymes. So the people ask me what's good. They're all good. They're all amazing, but you can't take all of them. So you have to decide what your goals are.
Well, then I think it's interesting too. Like funny you said the CMOS thing. It's like, I think people see these things on Instagram or whatever, and it's like, they're like, Jay, should I take this? And it'll, every day I get a picture of a label. I'm like, you don't even know what your vitamin D levels are. Right. Like you have no clue what our blood markers are. And you want to take a CMOS from the jungles of Malaysia that is supposedly going to make you 3 inches taller and smarter, in 30 days. You know what I mean? And so I think it's important for people like us to be really honest. Is
that where CMOS is?
I just made that up, but it probably is.
Is there a C in the jungles of Malaysia?
I'm sure there's an Instagrammer that says there is. And so therefore there must be, right?
There must be.
Yeah.
But for not knowing the source.
I think that's the craziness of the world we live in though, right? It's like these people see things on like the social media platform and it's like, well, that doesn't even make any sense to you and I. But I always say, like, they're targeting you at your weakest moment.
Correct.
Well, like if you need to lose weight and you see this ad that says, hey Jay, you can lose, 30 pounds in 15 days. Like, even though I know that's not possible, I'm in such pain and I'm at such a weak point that I'm like,
Correct.
well, maybe I'll
Correct.
try it. So I think
Right.
people have to remember that as like anytime you're being marketed to, it's usually marketing to your vulnerability. And so I think that's why it's important to have somebody like you in your life that will say, let's pause.
Yes.
Like
Let's pause.
let's take a really good look at like what are we really talking about here? And CMOS isn't the answer, and this particular diet might not be the answer. Let's really start to uncover what's really going on. Back to what you're saying earlier about your wife's diagnosis, like, and you guys started that whole just different like nutritional programming and things of that nature. How is she today? Like, how is she?
Oh my God, she's amazing. And I always like to let people know with autoimmunity, your autoimmunity is never cured.
Right.
It's always right there. So if you fall off the wagon, as it were, it's gonna come back. So it could feel cured. So she's not had a PMLE flare up in over 10 years. But if we, let's just say, are out and about and maybe our food isn't as clean, she'll can sense it creeping up because she
Yep.
gets like a certain tingling sensation, and then we have to reel it back in. So she now knows kind of the signs are coming up. So she lives as if it's cured because she can own. So I tell people that all the time. Like instead of the disease owning you, you will own the disease. You will know what triggers it. Now, sometimes you might say, I don't care. I'm going and I want to have pizza and beer all weekend.
Yeah.
And then you'll know you have a flare up, but you've made that decision,
Right.
right? So she's living um, symptom free. One of the things we discovered along the way, and I love to share this with people who have any kind of balance issues or dizziness issues, assuming you did all the workup, um, is how much gluten affects your balance. And then I've seen it over and over again with my
Yeah.
clients, how much gluten affects your balance and dizziness, seasickness, motion sickness. If you suffer from that, especially if it's getting a little bit worse, you might want to consider going gluten free. It crosses, for people with leaky gut, it crosses the blood brain barrier and can really do a number on you. And like you're thinking it's your age or oh my god, something's wrong with your brain, and then you go gluten free and it's gone. So
Yeah.
just something to consider.
I love that. I'm a big leaky gut. That sounds a leaky gut advocate, but I'm a big, proprietor of like people understanding what that is and like the importance of if you're experiencing said symptoms that the gut, is so important. Like I experienced a little bit of that earlier in my life and I couldn't figure out what it was. And just through kind of like almost self-diagnosis, just having the background and the knowledge, like I realized like it's the foods that I'm ingesting that have gluten are creating this leaky gut, which is causing me to have systemic flare-ups and just feel like I've got hit by a bus. And now that I've got that under control, gone away basically. Like you say, I'm
Yeah.
living symptom free because I understand the ramifications of that. That's awesome that she's doing well and feeling great.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. And then and as much as, on the personal level, it's great, but it's been even more empowering to see other people get better over the years. So it's
Yeah.
been great. Yeah.
I think whenever you're talking about her, I think, and I'm a big believer in this, like your level of self-awareness will really dictate like your level of success, right? Kind of knowing who you are and what you need to do. And so I think for somebody like her, like she has to be really self-aware of how she feels.
Correct.
And not just how she feels. I think when somebody says the word feels, it's like, oh, how you doing? I'm like, I'm in a good, it's way deeper than that, right? Like she can probably sense if she probably gets a tingling in her left earlobe that's not
Right,
normal,
right.
and
You
she's
have
aware of that.
Yeah, you have to get in tune
With
with your I call them tells.
yeah,
So, for example, with my clients, one of the things I've learned over time, my clients with tinnitus ringing in the ear
mhm,
that we're told like it's never going to go away, suddenly that's gone. And suddenly it's gone. So then I'll say to them, okay, now that's a tell for you. So if you're, eating something or doing something and that tinnitus comes back, that's a sign that things are coming your way. Like, because sometimes they don't come to me for the tinnitus, they come for like something else.
right,
So as the symptoms start disappearing, you start getting in tune, like, oh, this happens every time right before a flare up, and you start understanding it. So becoming in tune with your body is part of the process because when you're feeling unwell, it's just all one big jumble pain. And
yeah.
as you start improving, you're like, okay, I can feel this, I can feel this, this gets better with this gets better with this. And you start to learn the signals of your body.
And it's kind of like you said earlier about meeting them where they're at. Like if you start trying to talk about those little nuances when they're in just systemic
Yeah.
overload, it's like they're going to be like, "Lady, I just want to I just want to be out of
Right.
pain. Like, I don't
Right.
give a crap about your, what you think
Yes.
about this. So I think you're right. You've got to get them to that place of awareness to so they start to almost like diagnose, not diagnose, but understand their body enough to know,
Yeah.
like, if I keep doing the things that I'm doing, this is going to exacerbate into said state or whatnot. Tell me about your book. Like, why did you, so your symptoms are not in your head. Like, that's kind of one of your key statements. Was that because you heard that a lot?
Yeah. So when my patients come in for consults, they will say, I've been here, I've been here, I've been here, I've been here, and I've been. They keep telling me it's in my head, or you said earlier, I think it might be in my head. I can't tell anymore. Or they try to give me anxiety medication because they tell me I'm just anxious about my health. So like, or even if someone says lose some weight, get some sleep, you're just stressed, there's hormones. All of that is a subtle way of saying you're a little crazy, or it's in your
Right.
head. And this happens to everyone, but certainly happens more to women, just primarily just dismissed. So, so they come to me and I start the whole story over. And then I go all the way back to when they're born, as much as I remember. And it takes a really long time to do all this. And then I will show them how it's all connected. And I will present it to them. And then, whether they choose to continue working with me or not doesn't matter. Like the consult itself is so empowering. And this is the moment they'll say to me, they're like, the relief that they feel to the point of tears sometimes, to feel validated and to finally know that it's not in their head.
Yeah.
There is so much, it's already therapeutic, just that moment. They're like, first of all, that I believe them.
Right.
And second of all, to show them, like, well, this triggered this and this is what happened here. And they're like, and I'm like, and you're not crazy. And like that relief of it, it's not in my head. I just heard it over and over again. So like, and when I start consult, I'm like, at the end of this consult, I'm just going to show you it's not in your head. You're
Right.
not crazy.
I
Yeah, that's
love
what I
that.
did.
I also think you probably give them a space to feel understood and heard. You know what I mean? Because it's like nobody feels heard anymore because nobody's listening, right? So it's this dynamic of the world that we live in. It's like everybody's just, the louder you are, the smarter you are, right? Like
Correct.
that's the concept. And so I think we're all kind of like just navigating this life, feeling unheard and feeling like, God, I just wish somebody would listen to me because I know this isn't what, you know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
think you're giving them a safe space for that. So there's so many psychological benefits to just you allowing them to sit in that space of belief that, hey, we're going to figure this out. And then, together we'll figure out how to do it. Like nobody's ever
Yeah.
said that to them before.
100%. The relief that they feel to know that they're not crazy
Yeah.
is, yeah, it's
That's so
something.
cool. Now
It really is.
I'm fascinated. I'm a human psychology nerd. Like I love to. I spend most of my time trying to figure out why people do what they do. Like you know what I mean. Like just analyzing human behavior. You have to have a little bit of that in you, or you wouldn't be doing what it is you're doing. Like you've got to be a little bit of a kind of like a psychology, neuroscience type of thing. Because I mean, what you're doing is way deeper than just like my finger hurts, right? Or I get headaches, or my hormones are messed up. Like you're diving like down to the lower levels and the lower layers that most people don't even think matter or they get to talk about. Why did you decide to do that? Is it because you know that that's the way?
Well, I don't dive into it psychologically. Dive into it in this sense. Speaking of like psychology, we all know that if something happened to you as a child, you could be 50, 60, 70, it's still coming with you, right? But for some reason, we don't think that things that happened to us when we were younger are still with us now.
Yeah.
And what I kind of put piece together for people, because they'll say, ever since my divorce, ever since the COVID shot, ever since I had the flu, ever since my
Right.
dog died, I haven't been the same. So to them, it feels like the story started from the ever since moment. But in reality, it started from when they were born, because you get one body,
Yeah.
right? You get one body. And so you're born. And so then so I hear the whole story. It's like, well, I had antibiotics. I always had tonsillitis. I always had this. My periods weren't regular when I was 14. They put me on birth control. Then I had a car accident and I was blacked out for like 3 days in the hospital. Like, you think that is not affecting you at 50? But in the conventional medicine, it's ever since this, like we hear this, the end of the story. And then I had, PCOS, and then I had, a miscarriage, and then I had a divorce. Then I got a bankruptcy. Then I got this crazy. I was in the hospital. I went to Mexico. Like all these things happen that they don't even think to tell you. They don't even think to tell you because they're telling you like ever since the divorce, I haven't been the same. And so like now I force them like what happened age 0, what happened age 10, what happened 20. So now I show them this whole thing. I'm like, and then this triggered this, and this is where we are here. And what you're seeing now is just a volcano that erupted. But we cannot treat this. We have to go all the way back. So that is where I dig deep. Like I
Yeah.
try to show all the connections because your microbiome, you only get one.
Right.
So you had 10, years of antibiotics, that's already going to start a thing. A concussion is a cause of a leaky gut. You had a motor vehicle accident, and ever since then, you're going to be sensitive to gluten, right? So, putting all these things together, this is a skill that I learned over time as I was hearing people's stories over and over again and honing my skills of how to get the information, how to see the stories, and how to see the patterns. So at this point, when someone's speaking, I really know the questions to ask to figure out the pattern of how we got here,
Yeah.
which goes back to our first part, which is like, that's why I don't know what supplements to give you because you see how much I have to hear and learn about you
Yeah.
before I
Totally.
even get there. Yeah.
Totally. But what a gift. I mean, I don't think that, you know, I think that's a gift that you have and you probably always had, and you've just like harnessed it and like cultivated it over the years of kind of like, through your wife's situation that opened you up to a new level. And then I think you strike me as somebody who's really interested in like evolving and getting
Thank
smarter
you.
and growing and all those things, and which I think is something as a human that we're designed to do. We're not designed
Mhm.
to like stay stagnant. You were kind of talking about dementia and things like that earlier, and I said I always think like I think when you stop growing and evolving and thinking and using your brain and all those things, it's like it's like the brain's a muscle just like a bicep, right? As we stop using it and it starts to fade. And I think a lot of times we don't even give our brain like the the value that it deserves, but like we focus on our belly, right? We're always focused on like I'm 5 pounds overweight, but we don't realize the strain that puts on the brain.
Absolutely. When we're talking about the longevity game, we're talking about, if we're going to talk about the 401k, it's about saving your brain, right? Because you
Yeah.
reach this age, hopefully you're okay a little bit financially, and like now you're like at the stage where you're like thinking maybe of winding down, and then all of a sudden you lose your memory,
Yeah.
right? So you want to make sure that all the hard work, you want to raise your kids, you raise your children, all the hard work that you did, you can now enjoy this part of your life, and preserving your brain is everything.
Yeah.
It's everything. So, and there's a lot that can be done for it.
Oh,
You know,
totally. Yeah,
yeah,
like I think everything we've touched on today, right? The
mm-hmm,
movement, the
100%.
nutrition, the sleep, like you said, the hydration. Like I think if there's one thing that I'm irrelevant here, but if you're listening right now, like you have to get those things right, or at least close to right, right? As close as you can get them to your level of right. You got to start sleeping better, moving better, eating better, hydrating better, and then get into the dirt or the details of
Listen, yeah,
supplementation and
in the
stuff.
vortex. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because
So
it's a rabbit hole that you could find.
it's
I
a
mean,
rabbit hole.
trust me, I'm in it. It's
Yeah.
dark sometimes. It's
Yeah.
dangerous. It's confusing.
The clients ask me all the time at this, and I go, we can choose whichever rabbit hole you want to,
Yeah.
like just choose your rabbit hole. We can't go into all of them, but we
No, 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 no. I could talk to you for days and hours, and you're so interesting, and I love what you're doing. Before we go, if somebody's listening right now and they're at a place of either indecision or they feel like it's in their head or they've been told it's in their head, like what's the one or two things that you would say, just do this next and then get yourself moving towards the right direction?
Okay, so I, I'm assuming that this person, don't skip the part of doing everything in conventional medicine. Do everything. Do every MRI, every endoscopy, every colonoscopy. Do it all.
Right.
And don't get frustrated if they're negative. This is good news if it's negative. Don't get frustrated. Don't get angry. Move on. Um, Try to choose a guide again, whether it's one-on-one or just finding a course. And then it's really important to just try and just move a little, just do a little bit more each day. There is no such thing as all in, because even if you were all in, you'll find out that that's not even all in enough.
Right.
So it's a never ending journey. This is a journey. This is a rest of your life. Just like you wouldn't go to like your doctorate degree, you have to go to first grade, second grade, you have to slowly build up on it. So if today is about not eating all the Oreos, then today's about not eating all the Oreos.
Yeah.
And maybe in a few months you could talk about how, the kind of protein that you're eating. Maybe you don't start that tomorrow. So slow and steady, be forgiving for yourself. There is no right way. As long as you're headed in the right direction, you're going to get there.
I love that. Dr. E, you're absolutely fabulous. Where can people find your book?
They can find it on Amazon, or they can find my website. So it's The New Method, new spelled with a K, because you always knew there's a better way.
I love that.
So The New Method everywhere, every platform, YouTube. We just hit 10K on YouTube today. It's very exciting.
Shut up. That's awesome. You should be super stoked about that.
Yeah, it was so exciting.
That's not easy for anybody who's listening. Like, I think if you're watching like some of these like crazy creators, they're like, oh, they have millions of followers. Like, for people that are disseminating knowledge like we are, it's like nobody wants to listen. So that is so
long
cool.
Form, it's totally different. Like on TikTok is different, where it we get a lot of views, but I couldn't believe it either, because you're right, it dedicates 20 minutes of listening time.
Yes.
So
well, I'm proud of you. That's awesome. You should be really proud of that.
Thank you. It was a moment. My team was like counting it down all day.
Well, listen, we're going to get above that, because we're going to put your YouTube channel on this, and we're going to get everybody who listens to go and subscribe and watch and do all the things.
And I also have a completely free course where I kind of organize my things. It's free. I don't upsell you on anything. It's just free. So just go on any platform and go on whatever link tree it is, and you can find your way there.
Awesome. You are so cool. Pleasure to get to know you and have you in my world of what I consider to be awesome people now. And
thank you.
I wish you nothing but unbelievable success.
Thank you. Likewise to you too.
Thank you, Doc. Thanks for coming on the show.
A pleasure.
I want to take a quick moment to talk about the sponsor of this episode. It is very dear and near and close to my heart, because it is Lori's company, Spa Star. If you ever had the opportunity to watch someone create something from a thought or a vision and make this magical thing actually come to life, well, then you'll know why I'm so extremely proud of her and why I'm so excited to have her sponsoring the Thrive Forever Fit Show. If you've listened to my podcast, then you probably heard her on episode 259. If you haven't heard that, I would go listen to episode 259 as soon as you finish this episode. She talks about the story of how she created it, the adversity she overcame, the challenges that she worked through, and just the inspirational story that I know you're absolutely going to love. But what Spa Star is a luxury wrap, and it was created as a spa wrap for people who were getting beauty treatments. But what we found out is it is a piece for everyday life. People are wearing it as swimsuit cover-ups, resort wear, just to get ready in the mornings or for that special event. It is the most unique piece, and I've actually worn this thing several times. I was the actual first model for this. Maybe I'll show you guys some photos of that, Fred, when the time is right. But it is such a cool creation called the Get Ready Wrap by Spa Star. And because you're a listener, you get 15% off today because you support me. So just go to spastar.net, spastar.net, the word spa, the word star.net. And at the checkout, enter Thrive15, THRIVE 15, and you're going to get 15% off of your Get Ready Wrap. So many of my clients already have these and absolutely love them. We're selling them all over the country and all over the world, for that matter, to high-end luxury spas and to people just like you that are using them inside of their own homes. They're traveling with them. They're using them at the pool. It's so really just unbelievably cool to see and witness. And I'm so blessed to be a part of it. And I'm so blessed to have Lori actually sponsoring my podcast, which I think is really, really cool. So go check out Spa Star. I know you're going to love it. It is the coolest thing ever. And guys, this isn't just for ladies. This is one of the coolest gifts you could get any female in your life, for that matter. If Lori hadn't have created it, I would buy them for her as a gift to show her my love and appreciation. So dudes, if you're listening and you need to get a gift for your significant other or some special person in your life, go to spastar.net, grab a Get Ready Wrap. There's all kinds of colors. There's black, there's sage, there's a berry color, there's a gosh, I just went blank. There's a kind of a greeny, kind of avocado-y color. Really cool. You're definitely going to love these, I promise. So go to spastar.net, check it out, support Lori. And Lori, thank you for sponsoring the show.